Hello, how are you guys doing today? I hope you are well. Well, today, Grandma wants to read you another story, but while I'm reading it, you might occasionally hear the rumble of thunder in the background. We are having a big thunderstorm today, and there's been lots of thunder and lightning. So you might hear something occasionally. We'll see. Today, Grandma wants to read you the story of Joshua battles Jericho. Now, this is keeping along with our Come Follow Me reading for the week, and it's what happens after Moses. There were many wicked people living in Canaan, so the Lord commanded Joshua, the prophet after Moses, to obtain the land for the children of Israel. Remember, that was their inheritance. That was the promise given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that they would have the land of Canaan. And they were getting it because the Canaanites were very wicked. And so they deserved to be overcome. Following the Lord's directions, Joshua sent 2 spies to Jericho, a city on the border of Canaan. After sneaking through a gate in the mighty walls surrounding the city, they met a woman named Rahab. She had heard of Joshua's people and knew that the Lord was helping them. So she invited the 2 spies into her house. However, someone saw the spies enter the city and reported it to the king. The king immediately sent soldiers to the house of Rahab to capture the spies. Rahab, hearing the soldiers coming, quickly hid Joshua's men under stalks of flax on her roof. Flax is a type of plant that you make linen out of. So she was very brave to be helping the spies. The soldiers burst into Rahab's house and asked where the men were. Rahab answered, "The men were here, but they went out at dusk. Pursue after them quickly, for ye shall overtake them." The soldiers rushed from Rahab's house in pursuit of the spies. After they left, Rahab climbed to the roof and told the spies what had happened. And then she asked them, "Since I have shown unto thee kindness, save me and my family from the armies of the Israelites." She wanted a promise that she and her family would be protected for the kindness that they had showed. The spies promised, "We will save everyone in thy house. Tie a scarlet thread on thy window so that all will know not to harm thee." With this promise, Rahab let the men down over the city wall, and they returned to Joshua. The spies told Joshua that the people of Jericho were afraid of his soldiers. They reported, "Truly the Lord hath delivered all the land into our hands." Joshua and the children of Israel were now ready to cross to enter the promised land. But first they had to cross the swollen Jordan River. They had no boats, but the Lord came to Joshua and told him what to do. According to the Lord's instructions, 1 man from each of the 12 tribes of Israel carried the Ark of the Covenant, their most sacred possession, toward the river. Joshua then commanded them to walk into the river. Though they could have drowned in the deep waters, they followed the prophet's directions and started into the water. As the first man's foot touched the water, the powerful river parted, making a path across the riverbed for the Israelites. They had to move forward in faith. When they started out, the water wasn't parted, but it parted once they got started and put their feet into the water. The Lord performed a tremendous miracle, and Joshua's people walked across the river on dry ground. Does that remind you of when Moses led the people across the Red Sea to escape from Pharaoh and his armies. To remind themselves of this great event, Joshua's men gathered 12 large stones and built an altar near the bank of the river. So every time they would see this altar, they could remember what miracle the Lord had performed to help them to cross the river. News of this great miracle caused great fear among the people in Jericho. But they believed that Jericho's huge, strong walls would stop Joshua's armies. They did not believe that the Lord was helping Joshua. I will give thee the city of Jericho, the Lord said. All ye men of war shall march around the city once a day for 6 days. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times without speaking. Then, when the ram horns blow, all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the walls of the city shall fall down flat. Let me show you a picture here of armies of Joshua. They've been marching around the city walls of Jericho, and now the ram's horns are blowing, and they're going to shout. Let's see what happens. Every day for the next 6 days, Joshua led the Israelites around the walls of Jericho. On the 7th day, Joshua's followers obediently marched around Jericho 7 times and stopped. Silently, they surrounded the city and waited. Suddenly, the stillness was pierced by the shrill sound of powerful horns, and Joshua's people shouted with all their might. The massive walls of Jericho cracked, crumbled, then crashed to the ground, and the Israelite army marched into the wicked city, destroying everyone but Rahab and her family. Because the children of Israel continued faithfully to follow Joshua, they were greatly blessed. The kings of 5 cities heard of their greatness and feared the Israelites. So it wasn't just Jericho that they needed to conquer. It was all the lands round about, and there were many kings in the lands, and they were afraid of the Israelites. Joining into one great army, they combined their strength to fight against Joshua. They thought maybe they could defeat him if there were more of them. But the Lord told Joshua, "Fear them not, for I have delivered them into thine hands." With great faith, Joshua led his armies forward. When the terrible battle began, the Lord rained great hailstones on the army of the 5 kings. More men died from hailstones than from fighting. So that's a pretty terrible thing when those big hailstorms would hit them. But there were still many wicked men left fighting, and it was getting dark. Hard to fight in the dark. Joshua knew that if the enemy escaped during the night, they would return with more soldiers. He must win the battle before sundown, but he knew he could not win without the Lord's help. "Stop the sun from going down and hold the moon in its place," he prayed. That's a very interesting prayer, powerful prayer. He had a solution to the problem and took it to the Lord. The Lord answered Joshua's prayer. The sun stopped moving. The daylight lasted for several more hours, allowing Joshua's people to do the Lord's will and conquer the evil army. So that is some of the story of Joshua leading the Israelites into the land of Canaan and defeating the wicked people there so that they would have a land to settle in since they had left Egypt. Now, I hope that we can be obedient so that we qualify for the Lord's blessings. He will watch over us. He loves us, and he will help us. Remember, Grandma loves you. And I will tell you another story again. Bye.